CUB Productions presents Tracing My Roots to England, June 1987. I had traced my family tree back 7 generations, and I figured the only way to trace it back further was to go to England and trace it there personally. So in June 1987, I decided to take off. Here's the first generation me, Tom Newbold, born in 1946 in Dayton, Ohio. Moving on to the next generation, my father, Charles Robert Newbold, known as Bob Newbold, who was born in 1920 in Springfield, Ohio. I then was desirous to trace my family tree even further back, and here is my grandfather on the right, William Frederick Newbold, and on his left, his father, Ernest Bradford Newbold, and holding in his arms there is my uncle, Frederick. Philip Newbold. Philip Newbold was born in Overseal, England, and moved to the United States in 1851 at the age of 18. Philip Newbold was married to Martha Bradford. She was born in Hinckley, England. Her parents ran the Wharf Inn in Hinckley, and it's one of the places I want to visit when I go to England. According to the 1851 census, Philip's father was Thomas Newbold, who lived on Ashby Road in Gassiles and Overseals. Thomas Newbold's wife's name was Jane Bates. In 1851, Philip had just left for the United States. As we can see, Thomas Newbold was a laborer, agricultural laborer, and he came from Appleby, and his wife came from Stapenhill. Martha Bradford's parents, according to the 1851 census, were Samuel Bradford and Mary Woodward. They ran the Wharf Inn on Coventry Road in Hinckley. And as we can see, Samuel Bradford was a bookkeeper, an innkeeper, and he was from Oakthorpe. His wife was from Measham, and their daughter Martha was born in Hinckley. This part, as I understand it, before leaving for England. I know the Newbold side of the family for 7 generations. Here I am, Tom Newbold, my father, Bob Newbold, his father, Fred Newbold, his father, Ernie Newbold, his father, Philip Newbold, who was born in Overseal, England, his father, Thomas Newbold, who was born in Appleby, England, and his father, William. Here is my plane ticket. As you can see, we are flying Pan Am, left June 9th on Pan Am Flight 102 from JFK Airport to London Heathrow. We left at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday and arrived in London the next day at about noon. Of course, we had all the fun of all the airports and the hassles there. We flew from Cincinnati to Cleveland, Cleveland to New York, and New York finally on to Heathrow Airport in London. The plane flights were pretty much what you'd expect for a transatlantic crossing. The food was, what can I say, it was airline food, and because we were on the plane so long, it seemed like we ate every hour or two, but I guess they have to do that to keep you entertained on these long flights across the Atlantic. Also, we were very tired because we had to go through 5 time changes on the way over. But finally, after many hours of flight in the air, we finally sighted London and pulled into Heathrow Airport, and we were finally in England.
I'm sure you won't be in London for very long before somebody throws Dr. Johnson's famous quotation at you. When a man is tired of London, he is tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford. Now, that's very impressive, to be sure, and no doubt.
Here we are at the hotel that we stayed at, the St. Ermines Hotel. We found London to be a very fascinating city. We traveled around most of the time by using the underground. We had 4-day passes in which we could use it all over. When visiting various sites, we found it a very clean place and a very safe place to get around and see the sights of London. Of course, another way of seeing London is through the double-deck buses, and we took a double-deck bus tour.
And if you all keep quiet on the coach for 1 minute and listen carefully, you will hear people counting money. The government bank. And we've had a Bank of England here ever since 1692, founded by a Scotsman called Patterson. And it's in the Bank of England on the left-hand side. This is where we keep our gold reserves, deep in the vaults of the Bank of England. London has got a heart of gold.
Of course, I did some research on the royal family before going over there and found some interesting facts.
Did you know that Henry V wore a great ruby in his helmet at the Battle of Agincourt? Did you know that Elizabeth I was the first monarch to wear a pair of frilly-topped silk stockings? Did you know that George IV bought more than 500 shirts in only 9 years? Frilly necklines, pretty hats and famous hairstyle have been copied by millions of girls throughout the world. In America, they've made 2 films about her romance with Prince Charles, because she is everybody's idea of a fairy tale princess. Can't smile when you've been standing for hours with pinched up curtains.
Oh, exactly, because the Queen has to wear so many different coloured orders.
My first day in London and watching the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace.
Your first day in London, will it be the shops, the Tower, Westminster? The past and present jostle each other for your recognition. But you must not miss our greatest attraction, the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. First, the buglers appear, followed by the famous stalking sentries. Giant soldiers in their black bearskin hats. And when the Queen is in residence, there will be a full brass band. There's the splendid Sergeant Major, with his red coat, gold stripes, iron voice. Now the band, with, of course, green sleeves.
One of the most interesting parts I felt of the trip was going down the River Thames in a boat and returning here to the Tower of London. As you can see, the Tower of London with all the crown jewels are here in the background.
Queens were thought to rule by some sort of divine right. All these treasures are kept here behind me in the Tower of London. They've been there for the best part of 140 years. Although for reasons of safety, they were moved during the Second World War and stored in secret. So let's now look at some of the crown jewels, and in particular, those worn at a coronation. The coronation crown of St. Edward, especially made for Charles II, had to be large enough to fit over his thick, curly hair. It's solid gold with an assortment of jewels which have been rearranged from time to time to suit the taste of different sovereigns. This crown, though, has been worn at all coronation services ever since the time of Charles II. It was once stolen from the tower by a man called Colonel Blood, who got in dressed as a clergyman, somehow or other managed to flatten the crown, hid it under his cloak and escaped. Later he was caught and convicted, but then pardoned. Some say that Charles II was involved, wanting to pawn the jewels secretly. Certainly, he was always hard up for money. Anyhow, the crown survived, for the Queen to wear it at her coronation. The imperial state crown is worn when a sovereign comes out of Westminster Abbey after being crowned. It's used on all the other state ceremonies, like the state opening of Parliament. It contains the Black Prince's ruby, Edward the Confessor's sapphire, and some people think that the pearls come from earrings which once belonged to Elizabeth I. There are 3,733 precious stones, 3,538 of them diamonds. The one in the front is called the Second Star of Africa. It's part of the famous Cullinan diamond, the second largest in the world. At a coronation, the sovereign carries the scepter in one hand, a symbol of royal power. It contains the huge diamond Cullinan I, known as the First Star of Africa. The Cullinan diamond was the largest ever discovered in the world. It was unearthed at Kimberley in 1905 and was given to Edward VII on his 66th birthday. It weighed slightly under 1.5 pounds and now consists of 9 large and 96 smaller stones. The diamond in the scepter is still the largest in the world. In the other hand, the sovereign carries the orb, a golden globe, not solid, but still very heavy. The amethyst and the cross on top symbolize the domination of the world by Christianity. The coronation rings are also worn by the monarch when he or she is crowned. There's a tradition that the closer they fit the fingers, the longer and more successful the reign will be. Queen Victoria had to have her rings made especially for her because her fingers were so tiny. They must have fitted tightly because her reign lasted 64 years. There's simply not time now to describe all the crown jewels, but they are in the tower for anyone to see. So to end, here are 2 more crowns. Crown Consort. That's the crown worn by the husband or wife of a reigning monarch. It contains the Koh-i-Noor diamond, which according to legend brings good luck to women and ill luck to men. The Princess of Wales will wear it on the day of her husband's coronation. One of the most magnificent crowns of all is the Imperial Crown of India. George V had it made for his visit to India because the monarch isn't allowed to take the other crown jewels out of the country. Of all the crowns, it's the most valuable, with 6,000 jewels, including perfectly matched rubies and emeralds. In 1911, it cost £60,000, excluding the major stones which were a present. George V had to pay for it himself because the Treasury couldn't afford it. Now, it's worth millions.